All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Freddie Alyssa Show, and happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
It is the start of a week.
It
I'm feeling
is.
invigorated. Are people off Martin Luther King Day?
Yes,
Is
it's
that
a federal holiday.
federal holiday?
Mm-hmm.
So people are enjoying their day off right now, hanging
Yeah,
out.
what a special day.
Very, very special day. And we want to go over some of MLK's famous quotes.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be really fun. But before we get into the episode, today's episode is sponsored by Beekeepers Naturals.
Yes, it is.
And as always, we love to feature a product here for those who are watching so that you can see. We have a propolis throat spray.
Correct.
And this one in particular helps with immunity. So you can just use it as an immunity boost, just a couple little sprays. Or if you're feeling a scratchy throat, you can use that. They're saying it's better than like a lozenge. Lozenge? How do you say the word? A lozenge? Yes. So it really helps. But this is just one of their products. If you go to Beekeepers Naturals with an S, beekeepersnaturals.com, you can see they have something called a hive pharmacy. And they always talk about upgrading your medicine cabinet.
Which I love.
Yeah. So they have a few products. They have them for like brain fuel for focus and recovery, the throat spray that we talked about for immunity. They also have something for focus.
Ooh.
And or for energy. So beekeepersnaturals.com. Check out their products, and if you want to purchase one, you can use Freddie Alyssa for a 15% discount at checkout. So before we get into MLK quotes, because I'm really, really excited to talk about those and to reflect, because he is such an intelligent, well-spoken, a great communicator.
Amazing.
Which we've learned that communication is a skill set that will benefit you in any field. That's what it takes. And he was something very, very special and someone that I'm excited to talk about. But before we get into that, I want to roughly talk about the SAG Awards without going too much into it. Because sometimes the awards season, it's kind of like, all right.
Okay, first off, love the opening monologue with Eugene and Dan Levy.
Yeah.
They are just so talented. They're so funny. I love their son-father duo, and they just seem like really cool people.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we watched Schitt's Creek, their show that his son created and wrote and stars in it, and his dad. But his dad actually didn't, because he's been famous and a working actor for like 40 years, and he didn't bring up his kids in Los Angeles, in the industry.
Oh, they were in Canada. Well, and you know what's funny? Dan, the son, years ago, he obviously had the entertainment bug, and he's like, I'm going to try and be an MTV VJ. So do you remember what that was? Yeah. So he was one in Canada, the TV correspondent, and got a little like taste of, you know, fame or whatever it is, and he loved it. And then he went to his dad with Schitt's Creek.
Yeah.
And he was like, I really love this. I think we should go for it.
It has a very
So good.
a very particular kind of comedy that I think you'll either love or it won't be your thing, but everyone loves it. It is really funny. And I love his premise that with it being important, and me even playing a part in this in 2011 in the daytime genre, of our whole goal was that we didn't want to be known as the gay couple.
Right.
We just want to love is love.
Be known as a couple.
Like, and we've been able to accomplish that, but in a time it needed to be talked about. It needed to be, you know, we're still in this day and age where firsts are happening.
Right.
But with him in this show, he dated a woman and now he's marrying a man, but there was no conversation mentioned about him being gay or straight. There's no talk about it. It's as if we're 15 years in the future and people can date and marry, and there was no discussion. It's just as if you're watching these people in real life, and that was one of his goals. I don't want to speak for him, but I believe that's what I got from one of the interviews, and I find that to be inspiring. And we actually have a little bit of that in our movie Unplugged, that we have two gay couples, but there's no discussion about them being gay.
Right.
They just are like everybody else. And they are having, of course, struggles because of, you know, wanting to adopt or get a surrogate. Like, I don't want to give away our story points in our movie, but we don't hit it on the head where it's like we want to make it as if, hey.
Well, because the more fluid and relaxed this whole conversation is, and people are just as we are. That's just life. That's how it should be viewed. You know what I'm saying? Like, every time you have to bring it up, it's like, let it all just be normal. Let's all flow together. Like,
but yeah, think about it, though. 10 years ago, it had to be brought up.
Of course.
Because it was only stereotypical.
It was a thing back then.
Gay, stereotype, like the wedding planner, the hairdresser. You know, they played on the stereotypes, or the characters were always, you know, like over the top or flamboyant to the point where they were stereotyping.
Right.
And so it needed to be talked about. But I think we're at a point now where we can get away and
There's
should.
So much progress.
Yeah, to be able just to like, it doesn't. You don't have to talk about them being gay. It's just like, you just watch it.
Yep.
Like, you're a superhero, you're a cop, you're okay. So you like men or women, doesn't matter. Yep. So that was really cool. Brad Pitt won a SAG Award.
Supporting actor.
And he won supporting
for
Golden Globe.
Globes, yeah. So he'll probably most likely take home Oscar. That's kind of how it goes. If they win the Golden Globe and SAG Award, it's got it.
You think he'll win it?
Yeah. But can we discuss breaking the internet of Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt? Did you see those photos?
I saw the photos. I feel like I'm like...
Everyone, because it's...
I don't really care. Like,
long, like 2 decades, this big saga. They were married, then he left her for Angie, and... It was like they fell in love on set, which was horrible because he was still with Jen. And then Jen went on. She's like, whatever, I'm going to get over this. Crushed her life. And then now they're like friends and supporting each other, which is, I think, is great, even though he was like super naughty throughout that whole thing.
From what you know.
From what I know. But from, I mean, there was a lot of speculation. A lot of stories.
All the celebrity gossip.
I'm sure they were all true. But, yeah, people are freaking out about it. And I saw the funniest meme. And what's that Angelina movie, Maleficent? Is that what it is? Where she wears the big...
Oh, yeah.
Someone made a photo. There's actually a video, and they go, wow, Maleficent 3 looks intense. And it was the picture of Jen and Brad. And it's her coming through in the back. Angelina, she goes... Well.
Oh my God.
And I just love people on the internet because they just make me laugh.
So many people are clever and funny.
Yeah.
The comments on any video are just hilarious.
That's my favorite thing to do is instead of watching the content, I like to see the comments.
It's fire.
It's fire.
They're like
People
humor.
Are funny. The best.
Like, the internet has opened the floodgate of like how many people are really clever and funny and mean. Some people are mean, but clever and funny, it like owns the internet.
It's the best
because it's also smart. The comments that rise to the top are usually liked, so it's clever writing, joke telling. But yeah, I think he will win the Oscar. I'm a huge fan of his work from the early days too of Fight Club. That was one of my favorite movies. Moneyball was great. And you know, but I just feel too that he of course did a phenomenal job. But I'm also just like didn't he kind of just play Brad Pitt?
100%.
Right?
100%.
Like, did I miss something, or did he do so good that we were just like, oh yeah, he just did it flawlessly, but he was playing like a character?
I mean, he made a joke in his acceptance speech, and he was like, yeah, you know, I played this guy who smoked a lot of weed and took his shirt off, and something about his wife. There was but he made a joke because he knows, like,
yeah,
you know,
sometimes playing yourself though is hard. Yeah. Because you're just like trying to be like, I think we talked about that with Chandler on the podcast, like, or I can't remember when we were talking about it, but like getting angry or emotional, you're like getting there. Yeah. But to have just a, hey, how's it going? Or what's going on? Like a normal conversation and not be like actory is actually a huge skill in itself, but it just looks easy. But I feel like, yeah, he was very close to home, but that's why you book things too. Like with Sonny, like it's other than
too far off.
Yeah. Like we're basically the same person. He's just more rich and gay. Other than that, we're basically the same person, right?
I get what you're saying.
So, I got to catch him on the wealth train, though.
Hey.
But he came from family money. I started from the beginning, so.
So Sonny's
I'll
rich,
catch him. Oh, Sonny's rich.
To be curious.
Like hundreds of millions.
Really?
Yeah.
That's why he's always wearing the suits.
That's right. Yeah, he's wearing the suits. Yeah.
So cute.
Yeah, so
That's so great. So we'll see about Brad Pitt. Didn't you say that Leo did an improv scene in Once Upon a...
in the trailer when he was like gonna stop drinking or something.
Yeah.
And I think he improv that. I can't remember specifically, but I don't know. I just did a video about, someone asked about the actor's director, and that's just how we are too. Like even with our script, like I don't care. Like stick, but then but we're not like our like. I don't know. I'm some people are like, I direct like a genius. I write like a genius, and you are an actor and you act my genius,
right.
Which it works. There are some people, like even that Casey Affleck and Michelle Williams movie.
Yeah.
I forget who wrote that, but they were like the stutters, the overlap, everything in that movie was word for word, because I forget who wrote that, and he's one of the top writers in Hollywood. I can't remember. I'm gonna look that up real quick. It's Manchester by the Sea. So there are people that do that, but I'm on the side of it, and so are you, where as long as the final product that goes to screen is amazing, I don't care if you stick to the script.
Well, yeah.
I want people to improv, because in my opinion, that's where a lot of the
magic happens.
Like Curb Your Enthusiasm, it's all improv.
Oh my gosh.
That aired last night. Who wrote it?
We'll talk about that. Kenneth Lonergan
wrote that?
And directed.
Manchester by the Sea.
Yeah. What else has he done?
Yeah, let's see real quick. But yeah, Curb Your Enthusiasm is just never fails. It is the most funny comedy ever.
It was amazing. Like the 38 minutes went by
so fast. I was like, oh, they're just halfway through and it ended. I'm like, that was quick.
And how many times did we laugh out loud? I mean, continuously.
Dude, Leon
rolling
is so JB Smoove is classic.
He was killing me last night. If you guys haven't seen that show, I'm telling you, start from the beginning. It's just magnificent.
10 seasons over 20 years, I think.
Wow. Yeah, this guy's done some stuff. Gangs of New York.
Oh, I mean, he's on point.
Analyze that.
He's on point.
Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff.
But anyway, yeah, there's multiple ways of doing things. So, but and it's also the what's being talked about. Manchester by the Sea.
I was just gonna say
you're not just gonna, but like if we do the whole like ours is a straight up comedy with thoughtful moments and growth, but most of the comedy you want to improv.
Well, that's why they do line-oramas all the time. Like Will Ferrell, Seth Rogen, you always see outtakes of them doing that because you just know you're going to get magic. Some of the best things are improv. And I love like trusting in the actor too. You know when you're hiring someone, especially for a comedy, that they've got that funny bone, that special little magic, and it's cool to see what they come up with.
Yeah. And there's a specific delivery. Like there's 2 people I have saved on TikTok that I want to audition because their cadence, delivery, and just the way they are fits what I'm looking for. You can't just be a good comedic actor. Like there's like specific
but
delivery.
Isn't it funny being on the other side of that, though, from when you first came out here and auditioning and walking into a room and you audition, but for whatever reason, they're looking for something super specific and you're just not it, and they know the second they see you. It has nothing to do with talent. They're just like, oh, this isn't right for this project. But as an actor, a new actor, you don't really understand
you don't get it.
You have no idea. But being on the other end, you're like, oh, yeah, it's nothing personal. It's just not what you're looking for.
Well, because we never knew.
We want,
Well, now being on the other end of it, and have had many moments like that, you get it.
Yeah.
There's so many factors that go in. It's all completely astonishing that people book stuff.
I know.
Like how?
Doesn't Ryan Gosling say there's a 0% chance?
Yeah, he goes, people pack up their stuff and move out here when they know the chances of becoming successful are 0.
Yeah.
That was a dark movie.
It was. What was it again? It's a documentary.
It was with Alec Baldwin and his partner, Seduced and Abandoned.
That's right.
Yeah, it was about him and his partner doing a documentary on trying to raise $10 million to shoot a drama. And they had a bunch of actors and huge famous directors, and just essentially 95% of making a movie is getting the funding. Only 5% is actually making the movie. I think I remember that correctly from 6 years ago. And during the time, there were investors that were like, we don't even need to read the script. They just want to know who's attached. And he goes, Alec Baldwin, you're only worth about $4 million.
I remember that.
So if you get an actress to do the lead with you that's worth more, then we'll give you $10 million. But the guy's like, I never read scripts. He just goes off marketability because people will go see the movie.
Of course.
You know, it's what are people worth, and that's why we're always preaching. And we found this out years ago that back in the day, I remember my first manager wanted me to have a press kit before Instagram because how do you prove to casting that I'm marketable and that I'm bankable if there's no pictures of me on the red carpet or there's no pictures of me in an event? Like, you have to show websites that are talking about you and making articles about you to show that, look, this person will sell tickets.
Yeah.
And then you look at your IMDb rating, because your rating on IMDb, the more people that go view it, the lower your number gets. So even when I booked like 90210, there was a time I was like in like, I think the top like 200 of all actors in the industry that week of how many people went and looked at my profile. And then I shot back up to like 50,000. But
you know what's crazy too? Remember we had a friend who was telling us just with technology these days, they can have bots and different technology that can make that number go up too. Just like people cheat on Instagram and all that stuff. They'll like buy followers or try and shoot up the rankings.
Well, people are knowing that about Instagram, but on IMDb it's genius. Know about that, because how do you do that? She just had a really smart friend that helped her. So basically she was up for a part, and he created some sort of like algorithm or software that made like 1,000 different people go visit her IMDb page. So when producers were looking, her number was lower, which is good. It's like golf. The lower the number at IMDb, the better. The closer you are to one. But that's all you had.
Number one is right now on IMDb. Oh, I'd have to go on Pro, huh?
Yeah, I'd have to go on Pro. On my laptop. But nowadays it's your marketability is on what your numbers are on social. Because it is a correlation. If you look at what comments we get or likes we get or views we get, people can look at that and go, well, Freddie and Alyssa in a film would probably sell this many tickets.
Right.
And then they go, well, I'm investing this much. Let me add up all the actors. Let's add the marketing, you know, whatever that would be. So it's, you know, that's why I'm just...
Well, it's crazy because, you know, the whole... TikTok fame of like Charlie D'Amelio and her dad, and like all these TikTokers, they now call themselves a hype house. There's this big house in LA that some of them live at, some of them come and visit because they don't obviously live here, and they just all create content all day. But I was watching a TikTok story of the dad the other day, and they were in New York, and he was with Dixie, his oldest daughter. And there's this other girl, I think her name's Addison, and she's got probably like 8 or 9 million followers. And they were at some event, but there were thousands of kids screaming for them. And these are just like TikTok celebrities. And I was reading the comments, and people are like, well, this is crazy. Like, why are people going crazy? They're acting like they're famous. And it's like, but they are TikTok famous. To these kids are screaming, loving them, loving all their videos.
It's reality.
So, of course. That's what...
Or dance or makeup. Some people do dance and makeup on there.
Yeah, but it's just really interesting to see that the times are changing, and this is a new platform to gain followers, to gain... like any social media platform. You know, it's just really interesting to watch where everything's going.
But it just makes sense. It's so cut and dry. Like, if you have 9 million TikTok... let's say 10 million.
Yeah, it's crazy.
If Charlie does a... meet and greet and charge $50 and 2,000 people come, she makes $100,000. Not to mention when you're averaging 4 million views, that's double.
Yep.
What Charlie puts out on TikTok is twice as viewed than an episode of Days that's been on for 56 years. Wow. So advertisers are going to say, hey, Charlie, here's $200,000. Can you just like do a dance holding on to the throat spray?
Yeah.
And they're going to get 2 million eyeballs on it for like, that is what it's now. People's attention are going there more than commercials. And I don't think they're at the point of doing sponsors on TikTok yet, but that's the future.
Oh, they for sure are. I've seen them.
You've
everywhere.
seen those?
Yeah.
No, I don't think Charlie's.
Ad.
Charlie's kind of holding, but she's also young. Her
family seems to be well off too. That they're not trying.
The longer you wait before you sell something, the better.
Yep.
And that's what we figured out too. I'm like, before we ever start like a company in the future, you know, and have a product or a line, like I want to do that down the road.
Jab, right hook.
Yeah. It's like we'll produce content for 5 years, 10 years, free.
Yep.
And then if we come out with a bottle of wine or we come out with a hat, it would be awesome if someone wants to spend $20 and support,
sure.
You know?
Because, or a movie.
Or the movie. That I will be like over the top about. I'll be like, you have to go.
Yes.
You have to go. With the wine or a hat, I'm like, you don't have to. But if you'd like to, awesome. But a movie, I'm like, everyone's going.
100%.
Everyone's going. I would want so badly, though, as much as I wanted on like a Netflix or streaming, because I love that. I would love to go and stop into theaters if it was ever wide release, to be sitting in there. What would that experience be? To sit and watch a movie? Yeah.
Watch people's reactions.
And we're not famous.
Yeah.
Where it's like if Mark Wahlberg goes at this point, he's bombarded. We could go with a hat. Because if people leave and watch you on the screen the whole time, they'd be like, wait a minute.
And no one's going to know in the dark movie theater.
And we would just walk out like you would, you know what I mean? Like after the movie, if it was successful, you'd get a little bit of fame. But the first thing of traveling around, no one would know who you are, but you get to watch people's reaction of something you wrote and starred in.
Pretty badass.
That's really cool.
Dream building.
Dream building. Always dream building. But I want to hop into some Martin Luther King Jr. quotes because...
Please. He was just next level.
Check this out. So, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Darkness cannot drive out of darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that.
That's one of my favorites.
This is one of my favorites. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?
Drop that mic.
But that needs to be talked about more. Anytime you read a book, like even like if you think all the way back to these books that have been written by successful people back in the 20s and 30s and 40s, everything was about what can you add value to others, love each other, add value, and work on yourself. Work on yourself. But it's not in the mainstream.
Do you remember learning about Martin Luther King in school? No?
But not even that particular topic. I remember nothing.
Nothing from school. So weird.
The day I left, I never thought about it again.
You are so strange. I love it. Hey, to each his own. No, I remember in 4th grade, I was in Miss McRae's class, and we had learned a little bit about him, but they played the I Have a Dream speech. And I remember just being so moved as a kid watching that because he was just so passionate, and you just felt like the kindness and everything about him in that speech. And it was a moment that I remember that has stuck with me. Like seeing leadership at its finest at such a young age.
And that impacted you?
Uh-huh. I still remember it. 4th grade.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? I remember a lot from childhood, though.
I wouldn't have. I feel like I would have never understood it.
Like, I remember so much from growing up. I feel like I always have stories. But there are just certain things, though, that stick out to me, and I just remember that. Isn't that crazy?
I think you have to just be open to wanting to learn. Like, everything about Martin Luther King Jr. means more to me as I've not just learned about him, but learned about history and learned about, and like now that I'm invested and open to always learning, it means more to me than, I think back in the day, I just decided to write off school in my mind. I knew I just had to memorize and get A's so that I didn't get in trouble at home.
Yeah.
But I think because I didn't care about anything, I wrote it off so early that I don't think I absorbed anything because I just go, whatever they're teaching me, I don't care.
Maybe that was the disconnect.
How do I just memorize this to ace the test? And that's all I did.
Well, it's weird when I think about school because when there were certain topics that I was passionate about that I'm still passionate about today, I love those classes. And that's why it makes sense I remember it. But then when I think about math or some science I liked, but I remember I was in biology one time in high school. And they wanted us to dissect a frog, and I freaked the F out. I was like, I am not doing this. And I got up and I left, and I was like, I can't do this. And so the next day I was in a leadership class, and the teacher, he was like dead serious. This is how energy is so weird. He's like, oh, Alyssa, today you're going to go and set up all of the different frogs for people to dissect. He wanted me to do that. I said, hell nah.
Oh my God.
Like, ugh.
Yeah, unnecessary.
It's just not for me.
No.
I just can't. So I wrote a paper instead for both classes.
They let you do that?
Uh-huh.
Huh.
Yeah. There's always a way, baby.
I think we dissected a frog at one point.
Oh, I just couldn't do that.
Seems odd.
I just couldn't.
You still do that?
I mean, that was what, 10 years ago?
Guess it's important, though. You never know on your office job or in the studio if Ken Corday comes down and goes, guys, you're fired if you don't know how to find a frog's spleen.
But it would make sense to do that if that is the field you're going into. I don't want to do that. It stresses me out. Like, no, thank you. No. I remember, too, this is literally, I learned very early on that it's always going to be no if you don't ask. And in freshman year, they're always like, do PE, get it out of the way. It's a absolute must. You have to take PE. So my senior year, I still hadn't taken PE, but I knew that I had heard they might be a little more lenient with seniors. So I went to my guidance counselor. I was like, hey, can I take dance instead? And it'll count? And she's like, yeah, sure. You're a senior.
You had dance?
Yeah. So I did dance instead of PE because I didn't want to have to shower when I was a freshman.
We had different upbringing.
What were you doing in high school?
I just played sports. I don't think we had a dance class.
Really?
No.
But it counted for PE credit, so holler.
Yeah, everyone gets sweaty. That's odd.
And I was in humidity, South Florida. So being outside, just no thank you.
You know, there's a video. If you type in Simon Sinek,
mm-hmm.
he does it's one of his one of the greatest keynotes ever. I recommend everyone watching. It's the one that he talks about like the what and why in the brain, and
yes.
But he talks about Martin Luther King, that he had 250,000 people show up for his big speech, and that was before there was any way to communicate. And they're like, how did he do that? But it's because he told people, I have a dream. He didn't say I have a plan. He goes, he spoke why he was doing things, and that's what related to people. And people, he was saying, didn't show up for him. They showed up for themselves because they all believed the same thing he believed. 250,000 people showed up. There was no way to communicate, but people organized because they cared about themselves. And he also was a champion of UBI. He was back in the 60s, he was talking about universal basic income.
Wow.
And I just got a notification
really cool.
about a dentist appointment on Wednesday. So they have me on Wednesday, so you can go tomorrow for the thing. But yeah, it's been around for a while, and now that's why I'm really excited to see what Yang does. And then there's a couple more here I want to touch on.
I have one that I love that I saved. Oh, there's my dentist appointment.
I'll sneak one in before you here. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy.
It's everything.
It's everything. It's easy when you're chilling.
Of course it is.
But who are you when things get tough?
Love that. Love, love, love that. One of my faves. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But by all means, keep moving. So good. Doesn't matter your obstacle. Just do. Just try.
Everyone's been saying that.
Do whatever you can.
There's got to be more of this. There's got to be more of this. And that's why I love talking about it so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like this one too. The function. Education's it's so funny. I hated education growing up, and now it is the thing I care about most. The function of education is to teach one to think intensely and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education.
Oof.
And then
intelligence plus character is the true
of education. Yeah.
Well, because that's pretty much emotional intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Like in character is that.
Yeah.
Plus
of how you handle
actual intelligence. Wow, that's really.
But
really cool.
but to think intensively and critically, I think is just essentially. These are just my interpretations, obviously. But like how I'm interpreting it is why we dive deeper into things.
Mm-hmm.
I think you get in trouble if you just read a headline. Like if you just read a headline that says, self-driving cars are going to negatively blah 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 blah,
mm-hmm.
and that's all you do, you're not educated intelligently on that. You don't know. That's one article. Yeah. Like, and this could be for politics. It could be for anything. Like, you have to read. There's two sides to everything. You have to read and investigate and take 15 minutes if you want to be educated on that. But if you're anything like how I was in high school and you don't care, then people aren't going to care.
That's just being young, though. I think as you get older.
Well, there's more at stake.
Yes.
That's why I care, especially about finances and especially about how I am as a person.
Yeah.
And how you handle situations.
But that's why I like Twitter too, because I enjoy researching and seeing both sides. People talk so candidly and openly about both sides of situations, whatever it's going to be. And I just like to read that intel, if you will, and just see how people feel about different subjects. So you can either empathize with one side if you don't agree with it, but you can understand, hey, I get why you're coming from there.
Yeah.
Or try to. And I don't know, just educate yourself on everything. Any and everything you can. Take the time.
Because that's something you can always do.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that you should always do. And then I think a really great one, too, to wrap up is we must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. So right now we're in a little bit of a divide. Of what we're seeing.
That's true.
When you're in the real world, there's not much of a divide. We're also just we're such a huge population, and that's the other thing people aren't taking into consideration with a lot of these. Like, people are comparing us to, like, well, look how Denmark's done this, or look, it's like there's 5 million people there. There's 330 million people here in a vast, like, people who live in Texas and Alaska and Florida and Ohio and Southern California and San Francisco, New York and Maine are, yes, we're Americans, but we're all living different.
But that's, again, though, seeing the big picture. A lot of people don't think about that when they go, oh, yeah, look at Australia. What's their population?
It's like 20 million.
Yeah.
It's a huge land, but I think they're all condensed into like that. So it's
not 330 million. I mean, that's a lot of people, a lot of different types.
It was that gentleman from Denmark that told me that back in the day when we were at Molly's birthday. I can't remember, one of her friends' husband was from Denmark. And he was explaining, he goes, yeah, Denmark's as big as Houston. So it's hard to look to a country and say, look what they're doing. It's like, well, you're rallying 5 million people who are in a small area. You can probably rally.
Probably a little easier.
I mean, look what people have rallied in LA. People are very like-minded in this area of 10 million people because we all share, it's easy for people to be like so pro-vegan when there's a million vegan restaurants around, when people have options, when people are around, stuff. It's like if you're, so we don't need to get into all that, but that was just an example. Yeah. So, but I think we all just need to learn from each other. And if you don't agree with somebody, it's like, try to understand where they're coming from. And then, you're never going to sell somebody. You just got to speak your truth, and people who are open to it or that you touch, you could have a dialogue. But we learned that in sales. You can never waste your energy trying to sell someone on an idea or a product, because you're wasting your time. If someone's a wall, be like, hey, I get it, I love you, and move on to the next person. Yep. And that's just kind of how it is. But we could actually talk forever, but we have to get going. I feel like we always hop on a podcast when we have something to do real quick, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
And then we get into it. We're like, no.
I don't want to. Yeah, but we'll be back. We'll be back later. We actually we're filming our next podcast today. Yes. We have a friend coming over, so we'll be able to continue our combo, and we'll air that later this week as well. So, I'm wishing everyone a happy and healthy week, and we will talk to you soon.